So right now we're going to be doing transitional leash, guys. God uses all kinds of tools to communicate with us. You know, the Bible, His Word, pastors, people, music, movies. He can use anything. He's God, okay? So this is another tool that we're going to use to communicate with our dogs. This tool is called a transitional leash, which goes over their nose. It is done with a simple slip lead. You take it from a slip lead position, which is high up on their neck. You do have a safety on so that they don't slip out of this. Very important, especially if you're going outside. There's a lock on this slip lead, and there should be about an inch of play when it's in a slip lead position, but now we're going to move it up, and it's going to go into a figure 8 under her chin. So I'm going to slide the lock up, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to grow a beard under her chin here. It's going to go into a figure 8. It's going to go into a figure 8. Polly, can you move around? Polly, come. Sit. So the same things that we've just asked her to do, I'm asking her to do now, to be in a sit position, you know, while I get her equipment ready, okay? So it's going to go under her chin. It's going to go into a figure 8 and right over her nose. Okay, right. Right over her nose. Okay, when she allows me. Okay, so it's a figure 8. You need to have your treats ready. Make sure you don't tighten this lock behind their head too much. You know, you're going to slide it down so there's about an inch of play. Have your treats ready, and you're going to start feeding the dog, if they'll take treats, okay? This is just her food. You know, it doesn't have to be anything, you know, spectacular, but we're not going to rely on food forever, because relying on treats is just rewards. That's like saying, well, I'm only going to behave and obey God when He gives me rewards. Well, that's not going to really work out, you know. So although He does give you blessings, I mean, it comes with that obedience. But you're just not going to move forward until they're accepting of this step. And so you're conditioning the dog to the tool. You have to condition dogs to every tool that you use. So you can only move at the dog's pace when they're ready. God can only move forward when you're ready to listen to Him. And so He can't do much else when people are saying, I don't want to listen to you, when you're rejecting Him, which I did for, you know, most of my life. So, you know, and I'm not doing that. And again, this is my hope, that I can help people build their relationship, build their faith, build their walk, you know, with God and also with their dogs. And so I'm not moving forward until she's ready, meaning she's not trying to fight and get this off her face. She's not clawing. You know, this is called, you know, counter conditioning. So I'm conditioning the dog, right, to something that they may not like. And I'm just tapping the leash when she tries to get it off her face. Let's turn her around so she can see here. This is called luring. Polly down with the treat. And so I'm going to do it so that you can see. So again, relax. This is what we just trained. I'm tapping the line if she tries to get that off of her face. I'm conditioning her. I'm giving her a treat and a reward when she's doing the right thing. So God rewards us when we're giving Him the right behavior, and He does not reward us when we're giving Him the wrong behavior. And so when we're living in sin and we're being disobedient to Him. And so I'm just rewarding her. Again, everything that we've just trained on the slip lead, and we've done communicative leash work process, now we're adding on a transitional. I'm just tapping the line when she uses her hand to try to get that off of her nose. And I'm giving her a treat every time she's behaving and being good and giving me the right behavior here. You're going to take this leash across your body when the dog is ready, okay? And even if, you know, you have to massage them and you have to just wait a while in order to move forward, that's okay. You cannot move forward. Every person's walk with God and Jesus is different, okay? He has a different relationship with every one of His children. And your relationship with your dog and how they're going to learn is going to be different. Each dog is going to be different. So you have to move at their pace. If you try to push them too far, too fast, it will backfire. The dog will go over threshold. And, you know, again, God moves at our pace when we're ready. So to learn from Him. So when she's ready, you know, after, you know, make sure you can get a hip roll, make sure you can get the dog relaxed. We're going to move forward. If we can take one step, then maybe we can take two, then we can take three. We can learn to walk. It's, again, learning my walk with Jesus. It was like, can I do one thing that He's asked me to do? Okay, I can do this. And then He says, okay, you're trusted here. I'm going to give you something else to do and something else to do. And then you just learn to walk with Him. You learn to follow Him. And so that's what I'm going to ask her to do. This is an important tool, guys, for when you're on a walk out in the world. There's so many distractions. There's a calming point on the dog's nose. It's over their mouth. This can become a muzzle, but it is not a muzzle. But it is giving up the dog's last defense mechanism, so it requires a lot of trust. And so if Polly can look at the camera, it requires a lot of trust, okay? Because we have to trust Jesus to follow him. And so this requires a dog to trust you to follow you. And these are things for the human to work on. Work on building your dog's trust. Can they trust you to give up their last defense mechanism, which is their mouth, and you have them out in the world? Because they can't protect themselves. Now it's your job to protect your dog. And then also, if I need to give her more information about when she's stressed out about something, I put pressure on and I release the pressure. When she's complied, it's an easier tool to do that with. So you make sure it's loose right here. So I can lift up on her nose and make sure that it's loose, okay? I'm going to take the leash across my body. And I'm going to go through the same exercise that we just did on communicative leash work process. And now I'm adding a transitional leash. Okay, so Polly, come. Let's give it a little tap. Again, I'm taking the leash across my body. I'm tapping the line. I have 2 fingers on the leash here. I have the treats on me, and she doesn't need the treats yet. So I'll stop and show you. Polly, sit, little pressure up, and then release. You use less pressure the more tools that you layer on. So you don't have to use as much pressure. And I'm going to show you how you might have to lure a dog early on when they're panicking about this being on their face. But she might get overstimulated with the treats. So early on, you would lure a dog like this to make sure that they can walk with this being on their face. So basically you put the treat in front of them. It's called a lure, a treat lure. So you're basically luring the dog. She's lunging at the treat. You know, you can tap the line here. You're getting them used to this pressure. Okay, now there should be no pressure. Now I'm not using the treats. I'm letting her know, and I have no treats in my hand. There should be no pressure on the line, guys, when the dog is following you. The more pressure, if you hold constant pressure on this leash, you're going to cause more pressure and more tension, more stress on the dog. So I'm going to show you again now without the treat lure and just using the treat as a marker. So Polly, come. And I'm taking the leash across my body. Do not let the leash slide through your hands, guys. A lot of people... Now, if I let the leash slide through my hand, well, how can I guide her? Now she has all this room to be able to make mistakes. And the more mistakes a dog makes, you know, the more it's going to wear on their confidence, right? The less they make mistakes, the more confident they're going to be. That's just like humans. The more mistakes that we make, I mean, that's how we learn. But the more we succeed, guys, we gain confidence. And so God wants us to succeed. He does everything in his power to get us to succeed. And so thank God we're on the winning team. Huh, Polly? And so he wants us to succeed, right? So many people struggle with these behaviors, right? That's the bad news, right? You know, so many animals are dying. 5,500 dogs a day are dying in our country because, you know, the #1 reason they're returned to rescues and shelters is due to behavior issues. But the good news is God gives us the wisdom and the tools and the knowledge to be able to train these dogs so people don't have to suffer. Animals and humans perish for lack of knowledge. And so we are sharing our knowledge and information about how to train these dogs with these tools. Okay, Polly, come. So again, the same exercise we just did. So just tapping, okay? Polly, stop, little pressure up, okay? And then I can give her a reward, a treat as a marker. That's a marker. You can also just use your hands for pets. Again, sometimes treats overstimulate dogs, but for transitional leash, it's very helpful, okay? Now, for the transitional leash, a down, guys, we don't use our foot. This would kink the dogs behind their head here. It just would not be helpful. So you're just gonna use your hand and just a little bit of pressure for the down. And so you leave your hand here, your left hand, or your right hand, which is your least dominant hand, but I use my left hand. So just to tap the line if they need it. But this is a down position. This is the final exercise and position that we ask the dog to be in for relaxation. And all these things that we teach inside, guys, we're teaching with low to no distractions. That's why kids learn in classrooms. Before we take it out in the world, You need to know how to put pressure on your dog and release the pressure when they've complied, okay? This is just as much for the human as it is for the dog. You have to know these tools, and your dog has to trust you. You guys have to be able to communicate so that when you go out in the world, you can handle all those distractions. You can handle anything that comes your way. It's why now in my walk with Jesus, I feel capable. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, that anything that comes my way, I'm going to be able to handle because of him. And so they are going to feel calm out in the world because you are their leader. You're there to guide them. You're communicating with them in a way that makes sense to them. Polly, come. Polly, sit. You can face the camera. Good girl. So you're communicating with them in a way that makes sense to them. They hear you, they understand you, and you're learning to understand your dog, okay? And what their needs are. Polly, come. So you just do this as many times as you need to indoors, okay? Before you move outdoors. Polly, stop. Polly, sit. Good girl. And I'll just do the third position in a down here, okay? And I just tap the line if she's trying to get it off of her face. Let's Polly come, turn to the camera. There we go. Good girl. She's Polly sit. She turns every time. Polly down. There you go. Okay, good girl. So you want to do as much of this training as your dogs can handle. Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes a day. But the quicker you get them conditioned to this, the more you're going to have the ability to take them, out in the world and deal with more distractions. It's just like if you had a horse and you want to go out on the horse and go on a ride before the horse is conditioned to the tools. All dog owners should know how to use a leash to communicate with their dogs. These are just basic but important things. But once your dog is getting this and they're in a good frame of mind, that's when you can slip this off their nose. You don't want to take it off before when they're panicking, they're clawing. If they're clawing to get it off their face, then you're going too fast and you need to back it up, and you can grab their hands, and just kind of hold them until they calm down. But you got to go at their pace. And so when your dog is in a calm frame of mind, then you can slip it off their nose again, give them a little rub, and put it back in a slip lead position. Now, that's very easy to go back and forth between two tools, and that's the tool that we're going to move outside on for the structured walk next. So, good job, Polly. Okay, guys, this is Marco. He's another one of my dogs. He's 11 years old. He just recently had ACL surgery, so he just had his left back knee replaced. And so you'll see, him kind of rocking onto his right hip here. And if you see dogs doing that, kicking out one of their legs, that's oftentimes an indication that something is going on with their knees. And so we recommend that you, again, work with your vets, specialists in order to get, x-rays if necessary, and surgery if the dog is young enough. So they told me Marco was 11. He's a young 11. He's still got a lot of life in him. And so we went ahead. Go ahead, Marco. You can go down. Relax. Good. And he knows, every step. But now we've got a transitional leash on him because he's a strong boy. Marco also has eyesight issues. He's losing his vision at this stage in his life. If a dog has to go up and feel things with their face, a lot of times they can't see clearly. So they need to feel it. They need to smell it. They need to get next to it. And you'll notice a lot of dogs, again, Bianca has retinal deterioration. Marco probably has a form of glaucoma, older dogs. But again, I had a blind dog. So if you have a blind dog, this process will work for them too. So again, I'm just going to go through so you can see how you layer on the transitional leash. Marco is conditioned to this tool. He doesn't like it. Some dogs, tolerate it better than others because it is their last defense mechanism, which is their mouth. So I'm going to use treats, as we go through this to help him stay tuned into me. If he tries to paw to get it off his face, right there I used a click and I'm just tapping the line. And then it's important that you come off pressure right away because if you don't, you're going to actually close the dog's mouth and the dog's going to panic more. So you got to tap the line and then come off of it. But a lot of dogs are going to paw to try to claw to get that off their face. and you need to slow down in the process. If a dog is taking the treats too quickly from you and actually biting your finger, you can use the leash pressure to help them understand. And if they can't see clearly, that might happen. So if you have an older dog or a dog that has vision issues, that might happen. Putting the treat in between two fingers and keeping your hand flat is good, because then you can just take the treat right to them, okay? And so I'm just going to start walking through this. And again, it was because of my dogs and the issues that I went through with them and how I had to work with them that we were able to help so many other dogs. And so I hope you're able to get something from this. All right. So Marco, come. So again, I'm just slowing him down, taking the leash across my body, tapping the line. So I'm tapping it here, and I'm coming off the pressure to relax my arms. So I'm just telling him where I want him to be. But remember, I'm not holding constant pressure on the leash. A little bit of pressure up there, and I release, and then side pressure down for the down. I don't use my foot for the transitional leash for the down, because that's going to kink his neck. And so he already knows which positions, right, that we're going into, because he's done this so many times. And it should start to look like this with your dog. So I ask you what to imagine this would look like with the leash off, because one day you're going to have the leash off your dog, and you're going to need to give them the commands without the leash. And so the tools are just to get you there, right, to build on your relationship with your dog and to get them to the point of where they can give you the command that you're asking. Again, their obedience. It is important that they're obedient to you. They don't understand why, but this training saves lives. Again, I said, how many dogs are returned to shelters and rescues because because of behavior issues, then people don't have the tools to be able to deal with them. So it does save lives. They don't understand that, initially when you're working through them, through these exercises with them. But you will see. If you're faithful, obedient, and you trust the process, you'll get there. So, okay, Marco, come. Here we go. And you can also see, Marco, stop, sit, a little pressure up, and then Marco down. And so you can see on his back end, if dogs have knee issues, you can see them walking a little, or hip issues. And again, just taking into consideration each animal and each issue that's going on with the animal. So every animal is going to be different, but the process is still the same for every animal, for every dog. You just change, you adjust it based on the creature, based on the dog, and the human, right? Because sometimes people have physical issues. So if they have injuries, like hand injuries, they might have to switch hands. If they have knee issues as well, they might have to switch. You might have to switch your leg that you're putting the pressure on the leash. Some people can't balance. We've worked with people in wheelchairs, or if they have a disability. And so you adjust the process for the human and the dog, but it's still the same process. You just make adjustments for them. So, Marco, come. Marco, stop, sit, good, and then down. I'm just giving him, motions with my hands, directing him, in terms of how the pressure what I want him to do. And so the last thing I will say, Marco has also had back issues. And so again, it's important when I've talked about hip issues and knee issues, and a lot of times back issues. And so another important part of the process is the massage. So if your dog is exhibiting stress on their back, if their back is flinching when you go down their back, it's important that you're careful, that you don't put too much pressure on them. We've seen dogs that will sometimes turn around and maybe snap at their owners if they've touched a sensitive spot on their back. But it's also how you can figure out what's going on with your dog. And then again, work with your veterinarian. Marco has, I'm going to take this off his face, give him a little rub on his nose while he's resting. And so, but there's veterinarians that specialize in chiropractic issues. And Marco had a pinched nerve, and then also, sprained his tail. And so he's got a little tail injury here. And so it's very important that, you go slow with this process, that you only put the amount of pressure on the dog that they can handle. If you put too much pressure on the dog, they're going to tell you. And again, you're going to refer back to the calming signals and the stress signals that the dogs are going to give you. And so Marco's mouth is open right now. He's very happy. And so, but when the dog's mouth goes closed and their tongue gets out of the way, you know, nature designed that. God designed that, I should say. God designed that in case they have to use their teeth, okay? It's a defense mechanism. And it doesn't mean they're going to use their teeth. Marco, stay with me, buddy. It doesn't mean they're going to use their teeth, guys, but what it means is in case they have to, they've got their tongue out of the way. So it's important that you pay attention to what your dog is telling you along the way, and it's a relationship. They're telling you things, and you're telling them things. You're communicating with each other through all the tools that we're giving you. The main tool is the slip lead for the communicative leash work process. God communicates with us in ways. He listens to us. We listen to him, And so, so he has the final say. And so, you know, we have the final say with our dogs. But if we're putting too much pressure and trying to force them into, you know, obedience, it's going to backfire. Nobody wants to be forced. And so God gives us free will, a choice, you know, but he puts pressure on us because he wants what's best for our life. And it's the same way for these dogs. Marco? Yes. Okay, that's good. So this video is going to talk about dogs with reactivity and aggression issues. There are more dogs in the world that are dealing with this and more humans than what people may realize. So a lot of people struggle to take their dogs on walks because they're, you know, jumping higher than their head. They're barking and lunging at other dogs and humans. Star is a dog that has dog aggression and human aggression issues. And you're going to see that she's lip licking. Lip licking is actually a sign of stress. And so again, you're going to refer back to the canine stress signals. And also then we're giving you tools on how to address those issues and how to put pressure on the dog so that they can get into a calm state of mind. And so a better state and a better peaceful state of mind, okay? Again, when we get into obedience with God and what he's asked us to do, then that's when we find peace. And, you know, there's many humans out there that have you know, anxiety, depression issues, anger issues, rage issues. Star is our dog to demonstrate dogs and humans that are battling with demons. This is something that people don't like to talk about in the Christianity, in that religion. They don't like to talk about that, but it is an important part of the Bible and it's an important part of the gospel. So Jesus said we're to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out demons. And so it is an important part to talk about when we're talking about walking with the Lord and Jesus, but we also have an adversary, which is the devil, who actually hates us, wants to see us suffer, and wants us dead, to be honest. Dogs, we're all battling demons. So when you hear people say that they're battling demons, that's a real thing. And so it sounds like a cliche statement. And most of my consultations were a come to Jesus. So the training was going to work or the dog was going to die. So because people they couldn't rehome the dog. A lot of times I was the last trainer that they made it to. They had been to, you know, a handful of other trainers that could not help them. And so we had to figure this out. Otherwise the dog couldn't be rehomed. People thought that they could be rehomed, but maybe if they've bit, you know, another person, which Star's bit quite a few people, so she could not be rehomed. So that's just not safe to do. You know, in shelters and rescues, you know, it is important, and people that have newly adopted dogs, to understand, you know, that dogs have emotions, and again, being bounced around from home to home and in different situations does cause them to have emotional issues that they need to recover from, And so based on, Star obviously loves me, we've spent a long time building trust, but if somebody were to come up and touch her, that she did not give them permission to touch her. And when I say that, meaning she's given calming signals to say, it's okay for you to touch me. But if they touch her without her permission, she will likely bite them. And so she did that in a number of homes and was returned. And so she's not safe enough to be adopted out. She's our forever foster. And again, the amount of training that you do with a dog needs to be equally proportioned and balanced with the amount of management. So the higher the dog's behavior issues, you're going to have to manage that dog and to keep everyone safe. That's why we use kennels. That's why we use this training. So she's yawning because she doesn't know what we're doing here today. You know, lights, camera, action, right? So I'm going to go through the communicative leash work process, and I want you to understand that because you, their owner, oftentimes the dog trusts you the most. There were so many dogs that I could not touch on a consultation, and I had the owner do the leash work because everything can be explained through the leash. Before I ever touched the leash, I had them explain what leash pressure meant to the dog. And so if Star gets focused on something, you're going to see her wrinkles and her ears going up. And I just gave her a little bit of pressure to tune back into me. If I don't address that, then she's going to go to the next thing and continue to be worried, anxious, you know, confused. And then she goes into all these other emotions, right? So if we're following God and Jesus, it leads us to peace, joy, happiness, you know, the fruits of the Spirit. You know, if we're following the lies of the enemy, which is fear, confusion, anxiety, that's on the opposite end of the spectrum. So you have two ends of the spectrum, right? Black and white, good and evil, you know, darkness and light. And so anyway, if I don't address that, she's going to spiral. And so my job is to put a little pressure on her to tell her to get back tuned into me. There was a calming signal, which was her yawn, and she relaxed. And so it's, you know, Jesus does everything he can to try to communicate with us. Follow me, follow me, follow me, you're going to find peace. And the enemy's always working to distract us. So try to get us to look over here and be worried, look over there and be worried, right? And so, you know, Jesus commanded us to go into the world and preach the gospel to all creatures. And so animals are very important in the kingdom. They're very important to God. He gave us these creatures because he loves us. And it's our job to steward them, you know, in the right direction and keep other people safe, other dogs safe, and keep them safe. So I'm going to go through what this process looks like for a human and dog aggressive dog. It's the same process, okay? But you're teaching them how to deal with stress, and you're teaching them how to deal with pressure that is going to be put on them out in the world. But you have to start indoors with low distractions and with this pressure before you take them out in the world, and they have to go battle all those other distractions and pressure that's going to be put on them. So, okay, it's like, you know, going to church before we go out into the world, right? We prep ourselves with tools and, you know, put on the full armor of God before you go out in the world and battle those demons. So, Star, come. So, I cut her off. And she's, again, done this process before. Star, stop. Star, sit. Oop, she got a little burp there. And just a little bit of pressure. And then, you know, she sat. She doesn't need a lot of pressure because, again, she's done this before. So I'm going to, again, put the leash under my foot. Start down. And then she's not going into relax on her own, but there she goes, right? Because, again, she's done this so many times. I will also say that, you know, book smarts is not the same as emotional smarts. And so the emotional. So basically, this is about having a relationship with Jesus, a relationship with our dogs. And just because Star knows her commands and, you know, she can run through them probably better than most other dogs, emotionally, she's just not in a place to be able to handle the things that other dogs deal with. And so that's the same for humans, again, that are battling demons. Sometimes they're not in a place to be able to handle the things that other people can handle just because you know, people can read a Bible or they can read scripture. They can do all those things. It also doesn't mean that they have the emotional, the relationship, the intimate relationship with Jesus, you know. And so that's the relationship that changes everything. So Star's getting focused, remember. So the enemy will always try to get people focused and worried about something else, which, you know, there's a dog moving. And so I just put a little pressure on her leash. Then she goes into the yawn right there because I told her not to focus on that. The amount of pressure that you have to put on each dog is different. And so over time, you should have to put less and less pressure. But you see, so it's my job to tell her to stay tuned into me. Don't worry about that over there. If your dog is tuned into you, they shouldn't be worried about all the distractions in the world. If we're focused on our relationship with Jesus, we shouldn't be worried about that devil, those demons, you know, and the people that are trying to Or, we fight against, spiritual battles, not against flesh and blood. But, all the distractions of the world that is trying to get us away from our relationship with him. So I'm just, continuing to put pressure on her to stay tuned in with me. And that's how you communicate with your dog. Okay? So we're going to do this again. And then I will go to putting the transitional leash on her next. So Star, come. Star, stop. Sit. You'll also notice Star has a carabiner, and right here, this is a large carabiner on. I put it on for demonstration purposes. Normally I would have on a smaller carabiner, but this is very, very, very important, especially if you have highly reactive or aggressive dogs, so that they cannot slip out of the slip lead or the transitional leash once it goes on. Star, come. Star, stop. Star, sit. And again, she's licking her lips. There we go. And then you can get to the point where you click and bring awareness to your dog's back end, so that they will give you, a relaxed hip roll there. And so you can see her stress signals and lip licking, along the way. And it is important to pay attention to that stuff. There was a yawn, the calming signal that she's trying to calm down. That's actually a good signal. The yawn is a good signal that the dog is gaining the ability to calm down. And so when humans start recognizing thoughts from the enemy, making them obedient to Christ, we learn to calm ourselves down too, right? Whatever thought that the enemy tries to come with to place, in your mind, you recognize that and you don't follow and listen to that. When you listen to the Lord, then, we can find the calmness and peace. So when we learn to do that, that's the tools that's going to bring us to peace. And so she's finding peace right now. As she's yawning and calming down, she's letting us know that she is by that signal, because that's how dogs communicate. So for a highly reactive, aggressive, a dog aggressive or human aggressive dog, the transitional leash, a head halter, is the most important tool that we recommend you use, because it can become a muzzle. So you can put a muzzle over top of it, but basically, I'll come a little closer. Star, sit. You want to make sure that you slide the lock on the leash up, right? Then you take the leash below their chin. Star. So she's going to be a little bit defiant in what I'm asking her to do here. That's okay. Just get your dog into position again. When I said, swing them around, it is important that they stay in position. Hold the back of your dog's collar. You can grow them a beard down here. Just grow the leash under their chin. Do it a figure 8 and then just right over their nose here. Now, Star's been conditioned to this. I did the video with Polly and the treats and how to use the treats to condition this. But she is already conditioned to the transitional leash. So Star, sit. So we can just move through why this is the most important tool to use for reactive or aggressive dogs. Because again, you can take away their mouth if necessary. It's also why you have to be careful of putting too much pressure on the dog, because you're literally restricting, their ability to use their mouth. So that is why it's important to use treats, early on, so that they can realize that they can eat and drink with this on, right? Still give a kiss, And so people have a misunderstanding about these tools, like they have a misunderstanding about the gospel. I had a misunderstanding about the gospel. I didn't understand. I thought, the Bible and God, I thought that was all just restrictive, authoritative, that they were mean tools to control us. And what I realize is, God just wants to keep us safe. He loves us. He wants the best for us. And so he gives us tools to be obedient. And it is very important that people use these tools and know how to use them, because the majority of households in the United States have dogs. We should know how to use a leash. We should know how to communicate with our dogs, to keep them safe and to keep other people safe and dogs. All right, so I'm going to just walk around and show you, how it looks with the transitional leash, and to understand, again, why this is a tool that I would choose to use for Star when we're out in the world with her in public. Star, come. Good girl. She's done this so many times. She's still a little pressure up, still lip licking. Star, down and relax. Good. And you can say relax. You start adding the command relax. But remember to incorporate the massage, early on to get the dogs to relax. You don't want to skip that step. I can ask these dogs to relax, because they've already had the massage part of it. But later, and so you don't have to use the massage every time. You can, once the dog is trained, then you can just go into the relax. But early on, you need to do the massage. And so he's still licking her lips, but she likes that massage. And so this is a very important tool, and I hope that this blesses you and helps you keep your animals and humans in your life safe, and you understand why it's the best communication tool. Because if Star turns her head, I have complete control. I have more control over her head with this on than without. There's a calming point on her nose, so if she gets focused on something else, I have the ability just to communicate with her, put just enough pressure on her to get tuned into me safely.